customers really went off without a hitch. There were no complaints, there were no questions. We had the support of the administration in helping us by issuing a press release and explaining what the new format looked like. It's very clear. In particular, taxpayers who are getting tax relief from the town in terms of elderly or disabled taxpayer tax credits. Those credits are very clearly indicated on these new bills, and the taxpayers liked it very much. So that's the good news. The not so good news was that there were some issues with the billing. You've probably heard about it. It was discussed at the Board of Estimate on Monday night as well. And the assessor's office, Paul Gorman, the interim assessor, is here. We've both been, our staffs have been dealing with the customers since the bills went out. They were kind enough to identify where some of those issues were. So we pretty much, I think by now, they've been out more than a week. We know what those issues are now. People who need to get a corrected bill are going to be receiving a corrected bill. And of course, everybody is getting extra time to pay. August 7th instead of August 1st is the last day this year, because by state law, we're required to give 30 days from the time we mail the bills. So we're all on board with that. But if you have questions concerning some of those issues that we had with the amounts on the bills and so forth, I'd be glad to entertain your questions, and I'm sure Paul would as well.
Could you just expand, Lisa, for us what some of those issues are or were?
Yes. There were a number of them. The initial one that we discovered was having to do with some individuals whose taxes are paid through an escrow agent. The bill that we used to send out was very clearly marked that we knew the bill was supposed to be paid by the escrow agent. And the bill that the customer, the taxpayer, received at home was basically like a memorandum bill. There was a problem with the software with this conversion where some of those escrow codes did not carry over. And so some taxpayers got a bill basically asking for payment of their real estate tax when we really shouldn't have been sending them that kind of bill. So all of those taxpayers are getting a memorandum bill. We thought they might go out this week, but they probably won't go out until next week. But that was a software issue. That was a conversion issue with the new software. That was the initial problem that came to light. Subsequent problems that came to light, there were a few having to do with property transfers. There were a few having to do with the addresses on the bill, but there were the majority of them were two other areas. One was the elderly and disabled tax credit program. There were some individuals who did not receive the proper amount of credit. They were good enough to let us know that, and we are going to be issuing adjusted bills to them. That program is also administered by the assessor's office, and Paul's people are working on that. The other issue had to do with motor vehicle values, and this was the issue that was heavily discussed on social media. And again, this came from the office of the assessor that puts the value on the motor vehicles. There were some glitches with that, and they're working on it. And the individuals who have brought it to our attention have already been dealt with on a case-by-case basis. And we've handled many of them over the last couple days, where we're telling them, yes, we understand that the value that you're seeing on your bill is not correct. For example, one individual last year had a motor vehicle bill for $400. The bill this year is like $2,200. So clearly something is wrong there. It's a Toyota Highlander, a 4-year-old vehicle. It shouldn't be assessed at what it's being assessed at. So Paul can probably expand a little bit on that, but it's my bill. I get it. The customers are going to call my division. And we've been working very closely with the assessor staff to address all of those issues. So those were the major ones. But the collection has been going relatively well. It is more condensed in terms of time period than we would like. So the line has been a little bit longer than we have liked, but It has been going well. Payment processing has been relatively smooth. There have been some hiccups with the new software, but overall, I think it has been going well. I hope that answers most of your questions, unless Paul wants to chime in.
We do have one, Councilmember Jen McMurray has a question, and I have a follow-up question.
Thank you, Chair Burnett. I just have a brief question. So these mistakes were brought to your attention, but is everybody who hasn't called in that might have had a mistaken bill or an incorrect bill being given a new bill? Just we were able to fix it on our end in the software and then reissue those bills, or is it only those that have brought it to your attention?
So far, it's only the ones that have brought it to our attention, but our goal is to figure out what happened and then address it with everybody.
Great. So I'm assuming you'll probably continue to get calls, especially after we publicize it at this meeting and et cetera, and you'll address it as they come in.
Well, I think that once we figure out what happened, the way that it normally works is when the assessor makes a change, it carries over to the collector's office, and then our office issues an adjusted bill, whether it's up or down. So once they tell us what to do, we will be the ones sending those bills out, but we don't want it wouldn't make any sense to do it only if an individual called. So clearly we want to address it and tax everybody fairly and equitably based on what they should be taxed on.
Of course, I just wanted to see what the timing was of, now that you've collected all the information, what the timing is of trying to figure out what happened in the software and adjust that, so then you know who needs them and who doesn't.
Honestly, Paul would be in a better position than me to answer that.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a spreadsheet, and we are working the spreadsheet of the values that are not accurate. We haven't gotten to the root cause that caused the problem. Thought it was more important to make sure that we start getting all the bills issued properly.
Sure.
So we have been not only repricing cars as the people call in, but like I said, we have a spreadsheet, and a couple of our employees have been diligently working the spreadsheet to get as many bills corrected on a daily basis, while also addressing them as they come in on the phone.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Yes, I have a question, Lisa and Paul, somewhat in the same spirit of Councilmember Jen McMurray, in that, what are we doing proactively to address the situation? It seems like we're waiting for, as it relates to, for example, the automobile values, we're waiting for the resident to call in and question the bill, as opposed to going to them and saying there was a glitch. We realize that, and these are the steps we're taking to correct it. Is that, what are we doing proactively to address this situation?
Well, don't forget the bills literally just went out last week. So the motor vehicles were just mailed on Thursday and Friday. So it's only been like 4 days. So we haven't really even been able to identify all the people that we need to contact. So we haven't had the ability or the time to issue new bills yet, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to, but we have a line of people out the door. We're trying to just process the payments and answer the phones, and we don't even really know yet what happened. So I understand that you would expect us to do that, but that's probably the kind of thing that we're going to have to work with the administration on, because they're going to ask us, I believe, what went wrong, how are you fixing it, and they are going to want to announce it publicly, rather than have my division or Paul's division try to do it. But we're still in the early stages, because we don't even know yet how extensive the issue is. So we don't want to kind of go out there with only half the information. We want to have a complete answer to how we're going to fix this before we go out there and try to communicate. We do want to communicate it with people. What do I say to people? Your bill is wrong. I don't want to startle everybody into thinking that their bill is wrong, because the vast majority of the bills are really not wrong at all. It's a subset of them, but all of those individuals will receive a proactive communication from our division once we know what to say. I realize that's not an acceptable answer, but bear in mind, like I said, most people just got their bills Monday and Tuesday. My assistant just got his bill today. So a lot of people haven't gotten their bills yet, and we don't know what all the problems are yet.
So for example, if somebody just receives their bill and they're, in their due diligence, they come to pay their auto bill, what communication are we giving them? Are we checking to see that their bill is correct while they're trying to pay it? Or do we just accept their payment and then give them a credit down the road that once we realize that there was something not correct in their assessment?
Well, I think that the ones that, the people who are coming to the window with those type of bills are bringing it to our attention. But again, the cashier at the window, or they're not going to have the ability to know what a car should be assessed for. If the cashier were presented with a payment and a bill, they would probably take it. But if someone has a bill for $2,200 on a 5-year-old car that's not like a Ferrari or something, they know that there's something wrong there, and they're not paying that bill. They're calling us. I can't identify all the bills just yet. That's something that I'm waiting for Paul's office to give me. So in the meantime, yeah, we're collecting money, but I don't think that those are the people who are paying.
And just to chime in, I agree with Lisa. The people who have bad bills, that the assessment is wrong, they're going to know as soon as they see the bill that it's wrong. It's not like it's off by $1,000 assessed dollars. These are bills that are excessively large. A person would never think that their Toyota Highlander should have $100,000 assessment, just making up an example. So it's going to be something that's going to automatically generate a phone call. But like I said, when Ms. McMurr was asking questions, we are working a spreadsheet to get through and try to get these things done so that hopefully we have them done before people even start calling in, to be able, so we could say, we've already adjusted your bill. Another one will be coming in the mail. You can also print it online from the collector system. That's how we're trying to be proactive. We're trying to get the changes that we know need to be done as quickly as possible. I had the people up at QDS working diligently to get me the spreadsheet that provided me what I believe to be an accurate count. I'm still vetting it, and so I'm not ready to share any kind of concrete numbers, or not even close to being able to give Lisa a list of people she could write to. But based on the values that are on some of these vehicles, we can identify them right off the top that they're, like Lisa said, they're not a Maserati. They shouldn't have this number on it. We even had a Maserati that we had wrong. And then the last part is going to be digging into why did it happen? Because it's a pricing program that comes from the state usually. So we have to try to identify what went wrong prior to when the motor vehicle list was priced.
Should we send a communication out to the public asking them to hold on paying their motor vehicle tax until we get a better handle on this situation? They have till the beginning of August to make their payment. But I'm concerned that there are people that may not be well versed on receiving communications of this nature. They receive their motor vehicle bill and they just come in and they pay it. And they may be paying it in an incorrect bill. So my question is, should we send a communication out to inform Norwalk residents that we have a situation with the automotive bills, and they should just pause on making those payments till we get a better handle on this situation? I mean, it just seems like some people will be paying their bills, and then a month or two from now, they'll or whenever, they'll get a bill saying your initial bill was wrong. Here's the correct one. They'll say, but I already paid the bill. Now what do? Do we give them a refund?
Yeah, we would. I think that I understand the impetus to do something like that, but I think it will probably generate more calls and more questions, particularly from people who don't have a mistake in their bill. And bear in mind too, probably 20% of our motor vehicle bills are for leased vehicles. I would rather send something out to the leasing companies and tell them to hold off, because they are the ones more likely to just generate a check without calling. So I would maybe do it with them, but honestly, I don't know that would be helpful. I'd rather work with the communications director to send something out once we have a better handle on it, but it's really kind of too early, I think, but I would defer to what Henry would think, or what the administration would think, because our communications are really supposed to go through them.
Yeah, Greg, I think this is a little bit out of proportion. It's not like 80% of the bills are wrong and that so many people are paying the bills wrong. Let me explain a little bit about the process. The motor vehicles are run through a state program where they value the vehicles. Okay, I don't know the exact percentages, but maybe it's 20% of the vehicles that we get from the state don't have any value. Okay, so locally, we here have to go through our resources to try to identify values for those vehicles that were not given numbers by the state. Okay, we look at recent transactions, we look at the reference books, and we put the numbers in. At the same time, there are numbers we get from the state that are wrong. Okay, so we're not even responsible for the ones that the state gave us. We didn't cause the error. But when it's brought to our attention, we look it up, and when, as Paul and Lisa explained, when it's obviously wrong, we look into it. And if we determine that it should be changed, we change it. So the concept here is to solve this systemically. So we break it into two parts. How did we assign values to the vehicles where there was nothing listed from the state? And you look at that methodically, and you want to see if there were systemic errors or the way we put in those values was erroneous. That's one part. The other part is if we're getting numbers from the state and they make errors, it happens every year. Let me reiterate that. This isn't a new process. So the point is, we're looking at what's out there. We're trying to identify whether there is a systemic problem. If there is, we'll correct it. If it isn't, it's one by one as it's identified to us. I think I've said that right. Paul and Lisa, please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you got it right. And just to add on to it just a little bit, percentage wise, there's over 76,000 cars in the city of Norwalk. To tell everyone not to pay their bills because maybe 800, and I'm again, because I don't have an exact number, 800 people might have incorrect bills, to tell those other 75,800 people don't pay your bills. I think that's not necessarily the path we want to go down. Like I said, these bills that are wrong, the people are going to know they're wrong. No, I brought up the spreadsheet while Henry was speaking, and I looked at one 2017 Toyota Highlander valued at with an assessed value of $144,795, which calculates, if I do that real quickly, times 0.03067 to a $4,400 tax bill. No one with a 2017 Toyota Highlander is coming in and blindly giving us $4,400. They're gonna question it. The problem with telling people that don't pay them is I've taken more phone calls in the past 4 days from people who are complaining about actually good values, because there are a lot of cars that have appreciated over the course of the past 3 years. People just assume that their tax bills are going to go down on their cars every year. They don't. It's all based on, just like with valuing houses, what the current market does. And we current market cars every year. So you have I had a 2010 Honda CRV. I actually took the call 5 minutes before we got on here because I can't stand a ringing phone when I'm sitting at my desk. And it's valued at $31,000. And the lady laughed at me, but it's what the JD Power book says. That's been the majority of the calls I've been getting. Yes, I know we have some bills that we have to correct, but as Henry said, we're definitely handling them on a case-by-case basis as they bring them to our attention. But my department is also proactively working the list provided to me by the vendor to identify the ones that have gone up exorbitantly from the prior year. So we're handling it in two fashions.
And the point is, we had this last year when the values went up because of COVID. Okay, and people complain because they don't like the value, but that's what it is. So it's not necessarily an error, but we have a lot of calls and we're handling them. When we find errors, we fix them. We're also proactively trying to look systemically at where there might have been a systemic error that caused numerous errors, a systemic issue or approach that created numerous errors, and we'll correct them.
Thank you for that. I'm just trying to be conscious of, or what can we do proactively when we have these situations? But I understand the situation. Thank you. Council Member Jen McMurray.
I just wanted to say thank you for everything you're doing. I know this is probably a very stressful situation to have all these calls coming in and trying to sift through them. I appreciate everything you guys are doing. It sounds like it's a lot, and I just want to, identify that and call it out. But so I just have two quick questions. I know Henry said that we're not looking at like 80% of the bills or anything. Do we have any idea if it's a high or low percentage? I'm assuming it's not high because Henry just said it's not like 80%, but I know we're still also sifting through things. Like, how do we know it's not 80% if we're still sifting through things? Do we know if it's like 25%, 2%? I mean, do we have any idea at this point how many bills are affected by this?
Paul?
I could ballpark it at if I had to take a guess based on what I've been able to review over the last 2 days, probably about 5%.
Okay, that's great. And then if somebody did happen to come in and pay this bill by mistake, and I appreciate that you've said that it would be really unlikely, and I hope that is the case with all of them. But if somebody were to come in and pay the bill, how are we then retroactively identifying it if they don't catch it themselves to give them that credit back or that refund?
The claims report that we have every month that we just voted on in the first,
Yep.
the item before this.
So that'll catch that.
What that is that's a list of refunds for taxpayers whose bills were adjusted. And it happens all the time, maybe not because of a data error, but because in many cases, individuals sell their car. So they pay the bill and then they get the bill adjusted. And we send them paperwork to fill out to apply for it. There's a statutory procedure where they have to apply for a refund. We send them all the paperwork. We tell them sign here. They return the form, and those appear on your reports because your committee has oversight on the refund function that we do. But we reach out to them and we tell them, you have now overpaid. We have to give you your money back. And that paperwork comes back to my division. We send it upstairs to the Department of Finance, and the comptroller's office sends those people a check. So all of those people who are entitled to a refund for any reason, whether it's this type of error or any type of overpayment, we process those and we give them back their money.
I appreciate that. I just wanted to make sure that because this is like a software error, presumably that the software, once we fix it, is then stopgapping that. Like, we do correct it. We do realize it's a correction or an overpayment at that point, because obviously it went out as a mistake. I want to make sure we recognize that it's a mistake, as we move forward through the process. Thank you.
We do. Absolutely.
I would clarify, and Jen, I would use a different term. You keep saying software. It's really a data error. The software runs properly.
Okay.
it might be someone input the data wrong or it got transcribed.
Sure, I'm sorry.
So no, my point being that
Mhm.
it's one time and then you fix it. Whereas
Then you
with
fix it
software,
once you figure
might
out.
be
Yep.
ongoing. So it
Yeah,
makes.
no, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
For sure. We just have to figure out where the data was, how it was incorrectly put in so we can systematically fix it.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, that was the complete narrative, correct, Lisa?
Yes, I
Okay.
don't really have anything more for you. They will continue to track our collections for the prior year's levy. The auditors, keep track of our collections on the immediately prior grant list for 60 days following the close of the fiscal year. So we do anticipate that 98.51% to go up. And we will keep you posted on that.
So 99 is in reach.
Doubtful. I'm sorry to say it's very doubtful this year.
I have to point out and remind everyone that the way Lisa calculates the percent collected is different than what we do in the budget department. When there are settlements, Lisa reduces her amounts, her target amounts, because she can't collect what isn't appropriate after it's been changed. But on a budgetary basis, we look at a budget amount that we set last year in May, a year ago. And we then calculate, we think we're going to get 98.6% of those collections. And that does not, those goalposts do not move. And we have been successful. We try to be conservative in our estimate of collections. And we believe, so 99 is nice to me, as long as we're getting 98.6, because that figure is very important. That's how we set the mill rate. So if we don't collect 98.6%, then we may end up with a shortage somewhere. So as long as we get to our 98.6 budgetary, I am satisfied. Lisa is working more, if you want to call it, with real-time adjustments every month.
And those numbers, to circle back to Councilwoman McMurray's comment, the numbers that I'm reporting to you are net of refunds. So my levy changes all the time. My collections change all the time. My target changes based on what is actually collectible, and my actual collections that I report to you are real numbers, net of refunds. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, and very appreciated that, that this information is being shared publicly so people understand our process. So thank you. Do we have any additional comments or questions related to the narrative report? Hearing and seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Keep us updated, as I'm sure you will,
I will.
of the situation, and whatever we can do to assist, we're here to help in the solution.
Much obliged. Thank you very much.
Great. With that, we'll move to the update from our Deputy Tax Collector, Paul Gorman, on the reval process.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just a quick correction, interim tax assessor, not collector.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yes,
That's
I
okay.
was. Yeah, I kind of gave you multiple titles there, didn't I?
Yeah. So thank you for having me on today, and on to the fun world of reval. Things are going well. As of July 1st, as you can see in the agenda, the residential visits are at 81.5% as of July 1st. And the commercial is at 59.8% of all properties being visited for a first time. We did have a meeting with our reval team today, and I don't have an official spreadsheet to cover it, but we are probably more into the mid to high 80s for the residential and probably in the mid 60s for the commercial. targeting that hopefully by the end of the month, first week of August, they will be done with the first pass on having knocked on the door of every residential property in town. And by the third to fourth week of August, having knocked on and tried to visit every single commercial property in town. The data mailers that I mentioned last month that we're going to get ready to go out, the first batch has gone out. They are doing it by sections of town. And so the first batch was of 5,000 residences. These are letters that there's two versions of it. One is one that's being sent to the people who had a visit, but didn't allow for an interior inspection, but did maybe give information at the door, or at least allowed the person to walk around the exterior of the property and check the measurements and check the exterior condition. And it gives them the interior details of their property on the letter and says, if you would like to call for an inspection, or if you would just like to confirm the details, please return this form. And it goes back to the Vision people up in Massachusetts so that field cards can be updated. And if the information provided brings up any questions that maybe should be looked into a little bit deeper, they do ask for phone numbers and emails. So they do try to contact the homeowner to investigate whatever details might have sparked a question. The second version of the data mailer is more targeted towards the people who weren't home and you couldn't walk the property because maybe it's a gated house or it's a no trespassing sign on their back fence, things like that, where it's a little more targeted at saying, please give us a call. We'd like to schedule an appointment. Here's what we know about your house, but please give us a call. And they keep trying. And then there's going to be a third data mailer that will go out to everyone in mid-September. That's going to be that final wrap up, just to try to get to anybody that hasn't responded to the data mailer in the past. So if you receive one and don't send it back, you're going to get onto a list of the people who get a second data mailer to give you an opportunity to call, write, or email information to us so that we can gather as much data from the residents and the commercial properties as possible. I open the floor to questions.
I would just add a comment if I might. We recently had the first of what are going to be monthly status meetings with Vision, the firm that's knocking on all the doors and collecting the data, with Paul Freya, who's a consultant to us. He's the assessor in Westport, with John Valente, who is a consultant to us, who is helping to supervise and monitor the revaluation. And one of the questions I asked is, I keep seeing about 25% plus minus of getting inside the building. And I asked them for a frame of reference. Is that good, bad, or average? I just wanted to know the context of how we're doing, and I think we should react based on that. And they said, and they have extensive experience over many years, over Connecticut and New England, and they said it is within reasonable rates for what they see in other cities. They're going to do the two mailers to try to get even better information and to go further. But right now, they are knocking on the doors and they have a system by a certain date to knock on all the doors, try to get back and get more information where we weren't given access. And they feel what you do is you do the valuation based on the best information you have and you get. Now, Paul could tell you, because he's the expert, where there are certain properties where we almost have to get better information. It's so significant, it's important. But in general, you're looking at statistics on a large number of properties, and they're saying right now, statistically, the number of units that they're getting into is acceptable. There are other certain types of properties, apartment buildings, where you want to make sure that we know the number of apartments, the mix between 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, et cetera. getting down really into the weeds, and these are experts talking among each other, trying to make sure that this reval is as good as we could possibly get.
Thank you, Henry, for that, because that was kind of my next question, which was, give us a range in terms of how we're doing right now. So, great. Is there anything more that we can do in terms of communications, whatever it might be? If there's any actions that we can take to further advance the reval process.
In my opinion, no. I think the best thing that we did was the communications that went out in June to make people more aware of what was going on. The phone calls have really tapered off to almost nothing about people calling about, hey, there's people wandering in my neighborhood, people knocking on my door. We really have seen a complete drop off of that since the communications went out in June from the mayor's office. So I think we're on track. And now that the data mailers are going to be hitting the mail, I think people are going to even understand more of how important this information is. So I think we're on track. And I think we've got enough information out there at this time.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from members of the committee related to the reval? Okay, hearing, seeing none. Thank you, Paul and Henry, for the update. And let's hope the numbers continue to progress forward during the summer months. With that, we'll move on to the next item in the agenda, which is the update from Oak Hills Park Authority. And we have on Alan Dutton from the Vice Chair of the Oak Hills Park Authority. Alan?
Thank you, Chairman Burnett, for inviting me here again. We are now in the 11th month of our fiscal year, the month of May we're reporting on. I think your office saw what did receive the information. Just to give you some highlights of the month of May, the merry month of May. It's obviously three of our strongest months, May, June, and July, for the month of May. On the revenue side, we were $67,000 ahead of what we budgeted, 271 compared to 339. So more golf, more people coming to the park, which was good. On the expense side, we were $7,000 over our budget on the expenses, but our revenue was up by $67,000. So we did have some more expenses in that area on a percentage basis. And what that did for us, it increased our bottom line by $60,000 compared to budget. So budgeted to make $95,000 on an operational net income point of view, and made 155. So continue, to do pretty well on the net income side, pretty much. On a year-to-date basis, we find ourselves in a very good position. In our net income currently, after 11 months, with one more strong month to go, is $527,000 worth of net income, which was over our budget by about $340,000. So from an operational point of view, another good month. But I did, if I may, just want to point out a couple of things that, this money of the $527,000 that, is income, obviously we have things that go against that. We do pay the city for the privilege of operating Oak Hills. We will pay you $120,000 this year in city debt. And that city debt of $120,000 is made up of every round we pay $2.15 to the city for every round of golf at Oak Hills. And we also pay 1% of our total golf revenue at the end of the year, end of our fiscal year. And that actually comes to about $120,000, which we will be paying, have paid some already to the city for this fiscal year. To operate the park, we also have equipment. We have commercial debt. 2 years ago, leased the new golf carts. Old ones were 5 years old. They have a 5-year. So we leased those, and it's a capital lease, $450,000, including the GPS software. So we're expensing $90,000 a year in commercial debt. 450 divided by 5. And also to operate the park, Jim Shell, our green superintendent, we have to have equipment. We have mowers, we have fairway mowers, we have greens mowers, we have aerators. These have to be replaced. Obviously, we don't buy them outright because they're pretty expensive, so we lease them. So there's about $65,000 worth of annual commercial debt in our equipment that we purchase. So there's $155,000 worth of commercial debt on top of the $120,000 worth of debt, and this comes off our operational net income. And also, a final piece of the puzzle is the capital budget. Because we are doing okay, we're able to earmark some of these monies, obviously, be it a year in advance, for capital projects. And we will be spending about $130,000 this year in our capital projects here at Oak Hills to improve what we have. And I think if you put those three numbers together, the 120, the 150, and the 130, brings us up to about $400,000, which our outgoings, and that is funded by the monies that we take in. And this has been an exceptional year for us here at the club. And I'm not sure if we'll be able to, do that again next year. When we wrote our budget, we weren't as aggressive with the numbers. So I just really wanted to, let the committee know about this. And also just to say, I think in past years, we may not have spent, enough on our capital, to keep the course in the great shape. Obviously, cash flow perhaps wasn't as good in past years. I don't really know that for certain because I wasn't here. I know 2 years ago we had a great year because of COVID, and because of that, we were able to spend $175,000 on capital and do seven holes worth of continuous cart paths, which is great. In the next fiscal year, which we've set the budget to the city for next fiscal year, we'll continue obviously to make the debt payments. We'll continue to make the commercial debt payments, but our capital next year is focused to be $270,000 because we do have a good cash buffer at the moment, and we do want to get a lot more of our cart paths done if we can, and other such things that, because I think we have to catch up on some of our deferred maintenance that we may not have been able to do in the past years. So I just wanted to, let you know about that. And second thing, I'd just like to say that I'm pleased to announce that we have hired a general manager, James Holliday, Jr., started at the club on the 1st of July. I did send an email out to all the members of the club, and he's general manager, and he reports to the Oak Hills Park Authority. And I'm personally quite happy because some of the things I've been doing, well, now he'll be able to do and be on premise, and has got to know the staff, is around, has got to know a lot of the other members, and is basically starting to assimilate himself into the operation of Oak Hills. And that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Great, thank you. Do we have any comments or questions for Oak Hills? Yes, Mr. Dakowitz.
Thank you. At the BET meeting earlier this week, we talked a little bit about cash. Oak
Yep.
Hills is in a nice position where they have cash. And I explained to them that 3 months ago, when Silicon Valley Bank went bankrupt, I was very concerned about the city's bank accounts, where we have sometimes $20 to $30 million of unsecured deposits. And God forbid if our bank goes bankrupt, I can't even go to the FDIC for more than $250,000. I'm pleased to report we have completed, executed, and implemented what's called a tri-party agreement. The agreement is among Webster Bank, our major lead commercial bank, Bank of New York Mellon, which is probably the leading custodial bank in the country, and ourselves. And the concept works as follows. Banks like Webster Bank take their extra cash and invest it in securities, usually very safe securities. And they get the interest or the dividends for those investments. The tri-party agreement states that every day, at the end of the day, so let's say first thing in the morning, they tell Bank of New York, Mellon, here's how much our unsecured deposits are. And Bank of New York Mellon, the custodian for Webster's investments, identifies and segregates 102% of our deposits in securities. What this does is that serves as collateral. So our balances go up and down. We only request 102% of whatever that value is. And as I said, it has ranged from 20 to $30 million. Webster doesn't lose anything. They're still their securities. They get the interest and the dividends. However, God forbid they go bankrupt. Bank of New York Mellon gives us those securities, and we can then go to a different bank and conduct our business. So the risk of the failure of the commercial bank is now minimized to zero. So when I heard that Oak Hills has cash and they're putting it into banks, we thought it might be a good idea to coordinate our activities. I was called by Gary Leeds, who's a board member of Oak Hills and deals with some of the finances. And we're going to be speaking next week to coordinate, first identify what is the risk, how much do they have? Maybe they can split it among banks with no more than 250,000 and insured by FDIC. Otherwise, one of my thoughts would be to combine their funds with the cities, and that way, under the Webster tri-party agreement, they would be covered and would be insured against the risk of the failure of a depository bank. So we'll talk and we'll figure out a solution. What is the risk and how to minimize that? Because it's unacceptable for the city to lose anything on its uninsured bank deposits. And that's something I am watching carefully.
Henry, I'm glad Gary reached out to you because I reached out to him after our BET meeting on Monday. So very good. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Thank you for arranging that.
Great. Do we have any questions or comments from the committee members for Oak Hills? The one request that I have, and this is to our CFO, Henry, it's been a while, I know, at least for me, that in terms of seeing kind of the progression of the payment on the debt to the city. Is there a way that the committee members could get an update on what that debt currently sits at? And not something you have to show now, obviously, but at some point, could we get an update as to?
Chisholm runs the books, and
Okay.
she knows the debt. She knows the cash that comes in to pay it off, and I would assume she could create a schedule, but I'll let her speak for herself.
Actually, while everybody was talking, I did look up the current debt for Oak Hill. Currently, we have 1.8 that's still receivable from Oak Hill Authority.
1.8 million.
Correct.
Do you know,
Hello.
I'm sorry, Chisholm, but do you know how much the payments were this year? Approximately?
Yeah, it's about 100,000 this year from last year.
It's going to be a bit more than that, I think, according to my controller, but it's in the region of 110, I think, according to what we have on our books.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on how busy we are, basically, because it's based upon the $2.15 a round and the 1% of the of the total golf revenue.
Well, I would just say, again, I'm just hearing these numbers now, but 1.8 million divided by 100,000, we're looking at 15 to 18 years to get paid off, assuming you have these profitable years. The concern would be is how do you pay for the upcoming capital expenditures? Because you either have to pay it out of cash flow or out of new borrowings. So maybe we can sit down and talk about that because, you know, you need the capital investments and the cash flow. You said last year and this year were exceptionally good years.
Okay.
Great, thank you. And I'm sure Mr. Dacus will circle back to the committee if there's anything to share as a result of those discussions.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Alan.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is an update from our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Dakowitz, as it relates to the end of fiscal year 23.
Thank you. Yes, the fiscal year ended technically on June 30, 2 weeks ago. But it's very early in our processing for closing the books. As someone alluded to earlier, I think it was Lisa, government accounting is a little bit different from regular commercial enterprises. We use something called modified accrual basis, which is basically a cash basis. We record revenue when cash comes in, and we record expenses when the cash goes out. And the reason we do that is it's the most conservative way of showing cash flows. We don't count the revenues until our hands, and we don't count the expense until it's out the door. But the world works with credit, and that's why in the commercial world, there are accruals. There are accrued receivables. So if we are owed money, we show it in the income statement somewhere. And if we owe money out, we show that as an expense. And there are rules on that. What modified accrual does, it says it's basically cash basis, but we're going to keep the books open for 60 days after year end. So we have until August 31st. If we get cash in by then, we can record it as revenue for this current year ending 23. If we expend money by August 31st, we'll count that as an expense. So I have some preliminary numbers that Shitsume prepared about a week ago. So they're very preliminary. They're 1 week after the year end. And I'll share them with the caveat that we know they're going to change. But I think the general trend is something that will persist until the closing of the books. So when we looked at our revenues, we had a budget of $410 million. And as of July 5th, we had recorded 402.7 million revenues. So we're short 7.4 million. We fully expect a significant increase in tax collections in the next 4 weeks for the fiscal year 23 financial statements. And there are other areas, there are departments which have revenues and fees. So we expect that 7.4 million to shrink a bit, that shortfall. On the expense side, our budget was 418.7 million. And as of July 5th, the amount that had been expended was 402 million. So we were 16.7 million below budget. We have been in communication with the Board of Ed. They're finalizing numbers. They do this every year. And there are going to be expenditures that come through. There's going to be a request for a rollover. So we know that the 16.7 favorable expense balance will also go down. So we see a positive year with a surplus. We're not sure what the size is. We also included $7 million of ARPA funds and $4 million of rainy day fund drawdown. So that gives us some flexibility in how we show our numbers. We're also in the process of raising money, a $70 million issuance of bonds. So we're also in the process of preparing the official statement, which is the legal contract between investors and ourselves, and preparing a slideshow presentation to the rating agency analysts. So we're hoping to firm up these numbers literally in the next 2 weeks. They're not going to be finalized, but we're going to have a much better handle on where those numbers are. So I apologize for the wide variability, but I think the general trend is positive. And as we get more information, of course, we'll share it.
Thank you, Henry. And that was somewhat the level of expectation that this would be somewhat general based upon the fact that the fiscal year just literally ended
Right.
a few weeks ago. So just wanted to kind of get an early view as to where we are, and at least it's somewhat, I'll say, good news that it looks like it'll be favorable.
Yeah, I mean, Chitsume's done this for 5 years. Chitsume, if you want to comment on what the adjustments are and what you tend to see in the next 5-6 weeks, in case I didn't get it right.
No, I think Henry, you kind of hit on all the main points. I know that Lisa mentioned earlier, we have that 60 days that, you know, we prepare for to close our books. Those 60 days are waiting for cash receivables that comes in and cash payables. We want to make sure we capture all the accruals, all the accounts payable. I think in our department, we're very conservative when it comes to you know, reporting on a GAAP basis.
Do we have any questions from the committee members as it relates to the update that we just received? Okay, hearing and seeing none. Thank you, Henry and Chitsume. And we'll obviously look for more updates as time progresses forward. Moving on to the next item in the agenda, which is, let me get to it quickly here. We're now at item 11, which reads as follows: authorize the purchasing agent to issue purchase orders to Whaley Computer Associates for the supply of 100, what is that? 1,200 HP Chromebooks, an amount not to exceed $362,400, account numbers noted. And these items were budgeted in the 2023-2024 IT capital item. Do we have a motion on this item? Thank you, Councilmember Jen McMurray. And we have on the call tonight with us David Hopp and Ralph Valenzizi, who from the Norwalk Public Schools IT department, to share this item.
Good evening, everyone. So what we're looking to do is replace failing and out-of-date Chromebooks that are throughout the district, mainly in the elementary schools. What we're looking to do is reorganize all the Chromebooks we have, along with the new ones we're getting, give the newest ones to the youngest kids, where we start Chromebooks at first grade, and have them travel with them throughout the their elementary school time. Excuse me. Most of these are we have a lot of machines that are past the update cycle. So what happens with Chromebooks is after a certain date, they're no longer updated. Once they're no longer able to be updated, certain software doesn't run, including most of our standardized testing. We're also looking at, phasing out some very old ones that we use as spares. So we're going to take the ones that we're phasing, get rid of those, take the ones that are out of date and try to use some of those as spares, and then use these new ones to move on and make sure the kids have workable machines to learn with.
Yeah, and this, I'll just add to, thanks, Dave, that was great. This is really one of our first phases. We'll be like later on in the year, there'll be more. Usually we have 12,000 students, at about a 4-year refresh cycle, you're talking about 2,500 to 3,000 machines a year that normally need to be cycled through.
And one question that I have is, the the Chromebooks that are being replaced, are they totally unusable and taken out of the cycle, even to the point of possibly making them available to maybe community, nonprofit organizations? Is there any practical use for those replaceable items as opposed to just disposing of them?
Yeah, no, so, and some of them they are. I mean, a lot of times, so one area we do use those a lot for is additional summer school machines. When we collect machines, we're cleaning them up. We don't do any standardized assessment during the summer. So we can actually at times use some of those, because if they don't update, they're still secure, but they just you can't run, a state test on them or anything like that. So that is possible, but we can definitely look into it. I mean, instead of recycling them, getting them off our books, and they still in some cases will function, but they're usually, to be honest, by the time they're 4 or 5 years old and stuff, kids get a lot of use out of them and stuff. But we'd be happy to kind of like revisit that before we actually look at getting rid of them and stuff. And we've done the same thing with recycling other equipment through the city over the years. Whether it's I think old AV. I mean, we probably haven't had any old AV equipment, but we've done stuff in the past. So where you guys put it out to auction, we let you know what it is and kind of pass it on.
Yeah. Just to add to what Ralph said, there are quite a few that have seen some serious wear and tear, and it's almost missing keys and things like that. They're older, so the parts are harder to come by to fix them, and then to pour the money into fixing them instead of getting a newer one. But there's absolutely some that'll be able to be reused, and like I said earlier, that's what we'll use for loaners for when kids forget theirs, or if one's out for repair, and things of that nature.
Yeah, Craig, if I can ask, so is there like a point person on the city side that would be good to work with? That would, I mean, would it be Lamont, just looking at community efforts and stuff to see if there's
I guess I would recommend starting there, because the community service department has the outreach to our nonprofit community, and that would be a good starting place to at least put a request out to see if there's a need. And once we assess that need, if there's a way that these devices can get a few more years of use in a positive way with an organization, I think that would be great, as opposed to seeing them just go in the dumpster.
Or even families. I mean, it's like if there's any way that, we actually, the good news about what we've seen with this one-to-one initiative is that besides this, I don't know if you still know, so at the beginning of the pandemic, we actually, the Dalios actually helped us out a lot with giving home internet access for schools. Then there was a change in our E-rate, which allowed me to cover the home internet access that we were providing. That has since in the last year been sunsetted. So for this year, though, we were able to go back to philanthropy again to pay for this current year. So we still have about a little over 300 families that we're paying for their home internet access. Thank you to the Dalios too as well for helping us with that. But we did notice though that there's definitely a need out there, even just for families to be able to have a device. And when the students had the devices at home, the nice thing about this is that there is the ability for the adults there's nothing wrong with that to actually have access to do things if they do need to at times. So, overall, it was truly, we hope that if we can use these in one way to help equity within the district, by all means. So I'll reach out to Lamont though, and then throughout the year, we'll see if there's any possibilities.
Great, thank you. We'll greatly appreciate it. Any comments or questions from the committee members of this IT request? Okay, hearing and seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the motion, please show by a raise of hand or verbal. I see Nora, there it is. Oh, great. It's unanimous. Thank you. We will move this item forward to the next Common Council meeting on Tuesday, July 25th for final approval.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Great. Have a good evening. Okay, moving on in the agenda to item 12, which reads as follows: authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order to Total Communication in an amount not to exceed $126,679.45 for purchase Pure Storage Flash Array with 36 months, 24/7 support and storage installation. Pure State contract pricing applied, contract as number as noted, and account number as noted. Do we have a motion on this item? Councilmember Jen McMurray, thank you. And we have with us Joyce Liu, our IT director, to walk us through this request. Joyce?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the Finance Committee member for having me tonight. This agenda item is to replace the 5 years old SAN storage. It's part of IT routine infrastructure maintenance. SAN storage, short for the storage area network storage. It is the backbone of our data center. It provides a centralized and efficient way to store and manage all the data. So it's like having a supersized hard drive that holds all the data that city have. And yeah, so SAN storage is important because the data center deal with a massive volume of data, and every day from the document and the image to the video and to the database. So having a good and reliable SAN storage to handling data is really crucial for city's daily operation. The normal lifespan of the SAN storage is about 5 years. In general, server performance declined by 14 to 15% annually. So normally by the 5th year, the storage server is only operating at quarter or 30% of its initial performance. The city has 2 SAN storage, and the one we are replacing is 5 years old. City IT, we keep up of upgrading our SAN storage to maintain the business's continuity and use up-to-date technology to keep high performance and increasing the server speed. After the careful evaluation of available option, the City IT system admin team have identified a suitable SAN storage solution that will address our requirements and provide the necessary capacity and performance. The investment in upgrading our SAN storage will be significantly enhance our data management capacity, support the interrupted operation, and position us for the future growth. I'm here to answer any question regarding to this upgrade.
Thank you, Joyce. Councilmember Jen McMurray.
I feel like Nora tonight. That's a good thing, but I guess, or I don't know where Nora is, so I'm filling in. I feel like with all the questions. Thank you for talking about the sort of life expectancy of this, because that was one of the questions I was going to ask. But it does say that there's 36 months, 24/7 support and storage installation. What happens after those 3 years run out if we do still need support? How is that handled?
Right. So this purchase with a Pure Storage flash array. So what they're doing is we are paying 36 months support for the for the support, but after the 3 years, we are eligible to upgrade, free upgrade to the most update the server. We can up to so normally it's 5 years of lifespan, but with Pure Storage, as long as we keep on paying the maintenance, they are going to go do the free upgrade for us. So this is the new business model we are trying to exploring. Our system admin team did investigation on this the new business model, and they also go to surrounding town that wherever the business or city, our town, they already have this the Pure Storage solution in-house. They are all very happy with what they have. So this is the new thing for us, but I think it's really a good upgrade opportunity to tap into the update technology and a new way of handling business.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Here comes Nora.
Councilmember Nora Nadelski-Eichner.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate you filling in for me while I was commuting there. I was listening very closely. I just didn't want anyone to hear the noise. So thank you so much, Joyce. You know, as per usual, we're really very grateful. I think there's a enormous sense on this committee of enthusiasm for technology upgrades and improving the city's infrastructure. And I just wanted to sort of, to that kind of goal that we, I think, all share, you know, where are we in sort of your sense of kind of our path to strengthening the city's information technology infrastructure? Are we, you know, a quarter of a way to our sort of goals? Are we a tenth of a way to our goals? You know, what's our, I feel like we've had a nice series from you of, you know, things coming through, but they all seem to me to be very fundamental, very basic, very much like backbone. This is not like building new capacity, is my impression. So I'm just kind of curious of sort of how you feel we're doing in terms of our sort of where we need to get to for our technology infrastructure, for, you know, for our city services.
Right. I felt like I've been presenting a lot of items in front of Finance Committee, and they are all, like you said, they're all very infrastructure upgrade. So start with the network infrastructure upgrade. We haven't upgraded our network for 15 years. So those are the fundamental essential, that without the fundamental network speed, right? We really, anything we build on top of that will be slow, right? It's like, so those are the fundamental things. So after the 15 years, this is the year we are putting a lot of effort, lots of money to replacing everything on our network. So this city totally have a 2 cent storage. So this is one of the storage because it's up to the 5th year lifespan, and another one is 4. So next year you probably will, you know, I'll put in the capital budget to requesting for the another one upgrade. We don't want to upgrade the 2 at the same time. Things like this one still have some like good lifespan, and this equipment is expensive. It's over $100,000. That so in the meantime, though, we want to first give a try of this pure storage, and then slowly easing into the second upgrade. As far as the well, besides the network and system, everything else, we all have a kind of schedule to keep up to the speed. Our network team and system team, they do work really hard to keep up with, you know, all the standard. So we also sometimes we also have a consultant that will help us out to evaluate us, right? Cybersecurity wise and infrastructure wise there. So we are really up to me, I felt like you might see a lot, like for the past 1 or 2 years, we are asking a lot of infrastructure upgrade. But once we go through this cycle, the next time you are going to see us probably is another 4 or 5 years, right? So about, you know, those upgrade. So as far as the normal server upgrade routine, normal database upgrade routine, we are all on the kind of schedule. So it's all down in the regular capital request we put in. So we have items just for the server. We have item for the desktop. So those we have item for the libraries desktop refresh for the public facing. So all these are just operating there, but this item for the for the sense storage is kind of big deal because we only have 2, and that's handling every data that city have. So we want to take it very serious about when it's the time to upgrade. We don't want to miss the, you know, we don't want to take our chance. So in the overall, we are in a good shape, and I could put together a infrastructure upgrade plan and for the finance committee probably in the next 1 or 2 days. And if you guys are interested, we can share that information infrastructure upgrade plan with you guys.
Yeah, that would be terrific. I mean, I think we are very supportive. We really want to, make sure that we are getting things upgraded when we need them, that we have a fully functional system, that we're not trying to limp along on old technology so that, people can do their jobs. So I would love to see that and kind of get a sense, and just mostly just to double check that you're getting the funding you need and the support you need for us to have kind of a constantly functioning and appropriately upgraded system. I'd love to see that in the next meeting or two. Just would be great to get a sense of kind of what our cycle is. So thank you very much, Joyce. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Henry Dakowitz.
Thank you. Nora, I'd like to address the issue from a strategic point of view. Okay, and I think of three considerations. Okay, the first is infrastructure, which is the foundation, the importance. It's the network. It's having a refresh cycle for buying our equipment, whether it's laptops or printers or whatever. It's sort of, you got to do it. And Joyce is excellent at trying to spread out the funds in a reasonable manner, so we don't have all the money going in 1 year and then 4 years of a drought that we try to financially are able to afford it. Then I think of defense, which is called cybersecurity. And I think it informs a lot of the other decisions that we make, hardware, software, providers that we work with. About, I'm going to say 2 years ago, I may have lost track, Joyce implemented a questionnaire that we use when we do RFPs with vendors. And then those that get awarded contracts have a rider to their contracts. Just like we have an insurance rider, we now have an IT rider regarding cybersecurity, which says you have to maintain certain certificates. If you have an incident, you must inform us, so that there's more of a collaboration. So part of it is preventative and part of it is reactionary. And that's incorporated also very closely with our insurance function and risk reduction. So we've been fortunate to have $1 cybersecurity coverage. I think it's been 3.5 years now. And because we did it early, and knock on wood, we haven't had major incidents and nothing to file as a claim. When we go into the insurance market, we've been able to obtain coverage with better coverage terms and lower rates and deductibles. It's an ongoing, I won't say battle, but a challenge. But we look at our insurance carrier as a partner. God forbid we have an incident, the first call goes to them and they help us, support us to react, getting attorneys, getting IT specialists to help us. But at the same time, every time we have to fill out an application every year, they have tremendous checklists and requirements. So it allows Joyce to work with the organization to make sure we're at the right standard. So we have infrastructure, we have defense, and then I think of offense as the applications. And Joyce can tell me, I forget whether it's 50, 60, 75 applications she and her team are supporting. But what often happens, a good example, the police said, we have extra work. It's very manual intensive. We'd like to automate that. And they even had a vendor that they had proposed. We went into a formal RFP. We looked at the alternatives. We looked at it from a functionality point of view. Joyce and her team reviewed the IT aspect, and then it got implemented with the winner. We negotiated a contract, bumps in the road as always as we implement it, but now it's working smoothly and we get the efficiencies of automating, which has controls, and they're able to do more with less. And that's just one example. I could talk about Parks and Rec. I could talk about purchasing. There are oddball ones Joyce gets all the time. Hey, there's this little thing over here. And one of the things Joyce's team is excellent at is scouring the universe. What's out there? What's the best approach? If we have software to perform a certain function, might we standardize that in 4 different departments that need the same thing? I think a good example was in COVID, where we needed scheduling software for appointments. So we found the right thing, and then we were able to implement it efficiently. So when I look at IT, they're doing all of this simultaneously, 24/7 a day. And I'm very proud of where we are. It's almost like we incrementally do more every week, every month, every quarter. But when you look back a year, 2 or 3, it's amazing how far we've come. So I hope that addresses your question a little bit more fully.
It does. And I think that's exactly, what we are really hoping to hear. We really want to continue to support. I mean, I see the difference as we see some of these things roll out. I'm currently I'm secret shopping at the building department. I'm doing work on my house. And I think they could benefit enormously from some automation options. And I'm sure that we'll see that coming. I know that there's been some conversation about, and I remember in the efficiency study talking about the land records. And I think what I want to continue to reiterate is how grateful we are, how much we do see the efficiencies from this, how worthwhile it is to make these investments because the return is so great, not just financially, but really in terms of staff time and allowing our staff to do more innovative things rather than sort of manual and rote things. And so, I think I love getting these reports, and I would love to see kind of your cycle as you're visualizing it, as you're setting out your goals, as you're sort of targeting departments. I think it's very exciting for us to kind of see this work going forward. And it's something we really want to applaud and highlight because it does make the user experience better, right? It is much easier to be a city resident and consumer when these things are working well. So thank you for all of that work, and we look forward to what's coming next.
You're welcome. Just remember us budget time.
Believe me, I'm always happy to argue for more technology.
So, and we'll make sure it's spent wisely.
I'm sure.
We're going to make Joyce an honorary member of the Finance Committee. Okay, are there any further comments or questions? I don't think we've voted on this item yet.
Aye.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Let's get it done.
Okay, although we have one eye so far, I saw Nora's hand go up. Jen, myself,
Dawn's telling me to
Diana.
stop talking. I'll vote.
All
to stop
right,
talking.
here we go. It's unanimous. Thank you, Joyce. And we have one additional item, which is item 13 on the agenda. Authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order to Schneider Electric in an amount not to exceed $37,063 for UBS battery replacement for data center, account number noted. Do we have a motion on this item? Councilmember Nora Najelski-Eichner, thank you. Joyce, over to you for the battery backup.
All right, thank you. So UPS batteries is also known as uninterruptible power supply batteries. So they are crucial for the IT data center because they provide backup power during unexpected electricity outage and disruptions. So UPS battery are like emergency power reserve for data center. They ensure the IT system remain operational during power outage and safeguard our data, maintain the business continuity, and prevent costly damage. With the UPS battery act as a power safety net, when the main power sources fail, the UPS battery kick in and start supply electricity immediately, and to ensure our critical IT system like the server and continue operating smoothly without any interruption. That allow the data center to keep running even during the power outage, provide uninterrupted access to data, application, and services. We do yearly maintenance and evaluate on our UPS batteries in our data center. The current battery is over 5 years old. So in order to prevent the data corruption, minimize the downtime, and protect our sensitive information from being lost, we are asking your approval to allocate capital fund to replace our old UPS battery to keep up with IT's routine infrastructure maintenance.
Great, thank you. One quick question is, is the system that we're working on, does it allow immediate crossover to the backup battery, or do you have to power down and then power back up on
Oh, no.
using the battery supply?
No, this one is all the servers plugging directly into UPS. Then
All right.
into the right. So that's why it well because they are batteries. So for holding for the whole data center, normally it take about it can hold 15 to 20 minutes. But in our data center, we have a generator. So it's kind of in between when generators start kicking. So it won't be immediately like power off while you are typing something, where your data, the Word document you are typing, or the email you are putting together. And that will save us 15 to 20 minutes time to allow you to save, like whatever you are working. So it's kind of, it's a standard practice. And lots of the server, if you do like a power off immediately, it might damage it. So with the plugging UPS, everything's kind of holding to the, a stage that you can safely save all your data. And for IT department, we can safely, like if we need to do some action on, on some of our server, it will give us some time, 15, 20 minutes to do what we need to do. Yeah.
Great, perfect.
Okay.
All right. Do we have any comments or questions related to the UPS battery backup? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of this authorization? It is unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Joyce. So we will move both items to the next council meeting on Tuesday, July 25th for council review and final approval.
Thank you so much for your time.
Great, thank you. With that, item 14. Diana, item 14.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor? Great. Have a great rest of your evening. It's unanimous, by the way. Have a great rest of your evening, and thank you for your input and participation. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Night all.
Good night.
Good evening.